1. Newsom, Crockett, Waltz. Secret police, Gestapo, fascist. Is the rhetoric of the left leading directly to assassination? New evidence today out of Dallas. 2. Benny Johnson of The Benny Show has a special announcement, a tribute to Charlie Kirk, right here exclusively on Will Cain Country. 3. Final takes. The weirdos on my show want to have a debate about what food is better at home than at a restaurant. It is Will Cain Country on this Wednesday, and breaking news right when we start the program, right here at the top of Will Cain Country. According to Brooke Singman of Fox News, the FBI has been working 24/7 to seize devices, exploit data, and process writings obtained on location and in the subject's person, residence, bedroom. And the FBI is committed to providing a timely update. As promised, information regarding the ICE shooter in Dallas, Texas. 1. The perp downloaded a document titled Dallas County Office of Homeland Security and Emergency Management, containing a list of DHS facilities. 2. He conducted multiple search of ballistics and the Charlie Kirk shot video between September 23rd and September 24th. 3. Between August 19th and August 24th, he searched apps that tracked the presence of ICE agents. 5. He further accumulated evidence to this point, indicating a high degree of pre-attack planning. 6. One of the handwritten notes recovered read, "Hopefully this will give ICE agents real terror to think, is there a sniper with AP rounds on that roof?" Incredible reporting there from Brooke Singman, and a release of transparency from the FBI. Seemingly providing the nail in the coffin, the final piece of evidence, all you need to know about whether or not the rhetoric of, say, for example, Chicago Mayor Brandon Johnson or Representative John Larson is inspiring assassination. We're going to get to all of that a little bit later here with Benny Johnson of The Benny Show, but let's get into the debate now with story number 1. Both sides. That's the debate currently being spun and pivoted in the wake of the assassination of Charlie Kirk and an assassination attempt on ICE agents in Dallas, Texas. Is this a problem of political rhetoric belonging to both sides? Do we simply need to tone it down? That seems to be the argument that erupted last night on the struggle session that is Abby Phillips on CNN.
You're saying since it wasn't ICE agents that were killed, therefore this is a null and void conversation?
No, that's not what I'm saying at all.
Are you kidding me?
That's gaslighting. I'm asking you a simple question, because when J.D. Vance went up there, and when you're coming up here... This is not a
good argument from you.
First of all,
innocent people got shot today, and you're like, well, it wasn't ICE agents that got shot.
That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying that the division that you all are sowing in this country...
I'm not sowing anything. I'm saying protect all law enforcement.
Because of the simple fact, yes, protect
Gavin Newsom went on TV last night. Did you see what he said? He said ICE agents are authoritarian. You don't think that can inspire someone to do that?
ICE agents should be able to come home every single night. And so don't put words in my mouth. I am acting like it. First. And second, the fact that you and J.D. Vance and every other Republican can go on here and talk about...
We're not shooting people. We're not shooting people. The left is shooting people, and they're being inspired by I'm sorry. I have a friend that got shot and assassinated 2 weeks ago.
Okay.
I'm a little bit hot on this one because you guys have been irresponsible with the rhetoric.
The division that you folks are sowing, you see, you're asking for it. Your skirt was too short. You've ramped up the rhetoric. Who are we now but to take it to another level? Who are we but the logical inheritors of I hate my opponents to take it to anti-ICE inscribed on a bullet? You have turned up the temperature. We simply live in a heated room, says Bakari Sellers on CNN. And that's part of what's going on right now. If you take a survey of inside the bubble, the self-soothing sounds you're going to hear on Morning Joe is that it's the right that's causing all this heated rhetoric. And in fact, it's the right, let's be real, says Morning Joe, that is responsible for most violence.
Instead of trying to bring the country together, why is it so important for them to try to tear us apart? Why are they doing this? Why is J.D. Vance continuing to lie when Cato, when CSIS, when every other study shows that the predominance of political violence in America has come from the right? And again, you don't hear me saying, oh, this is all the Republicans' fault. What you hear me saying is these people are crazy, and we, the 90% of the sane people in America, we need to come together.
The predominance of political violence is on the right. That's the talking point, citing studies from the DOJ and the ADL. The only singular example that ever seems to support that talking point is the murder of Melissa Hortman and the targeting of other Democrats in Minnesota. But what you're going to find inside these studies and what you'll find underneath that repeated talking point is that there is no both sides. And certainly the predominant ideological political violence in this country has virtually nothing to do with the right. The attacker of Paul Pelosi was a crazy man whose background or rantings might have included something for someone to get out scot-free saying it's coming from the right. The fact that he targeted Paul Pelosi gives them all the evidence that they need that Democrats are the victim. Melissa Hortman was a Democrat, therefore, her assassin must be from the right. Set aside, the Vance Bolter was a political appointee of Minnesota Governor Tim Walz, seemed to be hearing the voice of Minnesota Governor Tim Walz in his head and instructing him. Reporting suggests he was upset that Hortman wasn't far left enough in extending health care to illegal immigrants, had in his possession no King's Day flyers, but may have also in the past had some kind things to say about someone on the right, and you have all the evidence you need to chalk it up one more in your column to right-wing political violence. But everyone within a bit of common sense understands that there's a difference between a crazy person whom you can go back and see crazy rantings to support your stat or your narrative, and a normal person turned crazy by the rhetoric of elected officials on the left. Tyler Robinson wasn't a man, despite a lunatic act, wasn't a man dealing with lunacy. He was a normal person turned crazy by a culture and a climate and a set of rhetoric that told him you have an existential threat to your world, your boyfriend's existence. And that threat is Charlie Kirk. Jonathan John, or the ICE shooter in Dallas, was a 29-year-old man that, according to his high school classmates, wasn't particularly political until very recently. And we have, as of this morning, reporting to suggest he wants to put ICE agents in the fear of terror. But this talking point that is coming from the right has been regurgitated. It's been digested and now vomited back to the point that Megyn Kelly and Governor Glenn Youngkin yesterday, carrying on the tradition of Charlie Kirk, did a Turning Point USA event in Virginia. And a young student stands up and says the exact same thing. The vast majority of political violence in this country comes from the right. And it's the rhetoric. You heard Bakari Sellers and Joe Scarborough reference Vice President J.D. Vance. In this case, the young man says it's the rhetoric of President Donald Trump that has caused the division in this country. Has Donald Trump ever called his political opponent an authoritarian? That's the words of Governor Gavin Newsom. Has he ever said that those who opposed him likened or reminded him of slave patrols? That's the words of Jasmine Crockett. Has he ever suggested that they are members of or remind him of the Gestapo? That's Minnesota Governor Tim Walz. Karen Bass of Los Angeles said ICE agents are on a reign of terror. Brandon Johnson called ICE agents enforcing the law pure terrorism. And Representative John Larson trying to take the gold medal, said ICE agents were secret police, SS, and Gestapo. I ask you, is that the same as saying you hate your political opponents? Is Paul Pelosi's attacker the same as a 22-year-old in Utah writing "Catch this fascist" on his bullets and shooting Charlie Kirk in the neck? All you have to have is a bit of common sense to get right past the talking point to see this issue is not one of both sides. But we had a fascinating conversation earlier today on our pre-show planning call where there was a divergence of opinions, a multitude of points of view. We want to bring that to you as well right here on Will Cain Country. Let's bring in now to the show my guys, Tinfoil Pat, Two-A-Days Dan, and Young Connor. Now, Tinfoil, let's together try to pump up Two-A-Days Dan. Let's first warn him. Let's warn him, Tinfoil, right? When you go into this debate, try not to, as you have so often in the past, be racist. If you can do your best, Dan,
that needs to
try
stop.
Not to be racist.
Never have been, never will be.
It does. That does need to stop. You need
we
to
have
stop
it on video,
being racist.
so.
God.
Several
Why did I come here?
So let's just make sure. Let's just make sure today that you are not racist. Second, let's pump him up a little bit. Now that we've knocked him down a peg, Tinfoil, we want the same energy that you do off air that you give us on air. So I want you, come on, Patrick, at this point, I want you to tell Dan how great he is, that his arguments have merit. He's not walking into a buzzsaw. He should feel brave and bold and come out strongly with his opinion. Come on, pump him up, Tinfoil.
I thought, Dan's point made a lot of sense. When you really think about, the rhetoric and how things are going, and it's like it was pretty good. He sold me for sure.
That's not true, but thank you.
I don't know if I believe a single word of that, Dan,
No,
but I hope it makes you feel better. And I hope you feel bold right now. Okay, you today, perhaps giving your authentic point of view, or perhaps echoing the opinions of the Brooklyn Brunch crew, have forwarded to us the idea that we hear there from Bakari Sellers, the idea that we hear from the young student at the Turning Point USA event, that this is both sides and that Donald Trump's rhetoric is akin to what we're hearing from the left. And they, I'm trying to paraphrase your argument, are no more responsible for the acts of a crazy man than someone would be taking up Donald Trump's rhetorical flourishes of hating his opponent. I give the floor to you now, Two-A-Days.
Yes, but there are both sides, and you're talking about these shooters and these crazy people on the left that have these ideologies listening to Gavin Newsom or Jasmine Crockett. I mean, I don't think that's where they're getting their ideologies from. I mean, we're talking about a bigger issue that's, maybe more online and things like that. And I'm not just talking about Trump and his rhetoric. It's all rhetoric. If you're talking about political violence, you have to talk about all political violence. You're talking about political violence against politicians or people who are on TV that we hear a lot from. You could be talking about, what about a gay couple that has political violence brought upon them, or minorities because of certain talking points that usually come from the right as well. There could be things in that nature that just because it's not a Trump or something like that, it's still a rhetoric that's being pushed on a certain side. And I think we all just need to stop finger pointing, because if we keep finger pointing, this is going to keep happening, because you're saying, hey, this is the left's fault. And the left's going to be like, wait a minute, there is a side. I am taking a side now. And so it causes a little bit more of that violence and rhetoric and that thought process, because there are sides and there's finger pointing, and they feel like their finger is pointing at them.
Okay, I get the instinct. I acknowledge the human condition that when a finger is pointed at them, to feel defensive and retreat into your corners, behind your battle lines. And I understand that when someone says to you, you need to check your rhetoric, what you are doing is causing violence. It instinctually is going to inspire in that person a posture of defensiveness. But what I would suggest to you is, in that moment, perhaps instead of retreat to defensiveness, the instinct at this point should be self-awareness. Instead of retreating to your battle lines, walk over to a mirror. I know that's not easy to hear. But I do believe that what you'll see staring back at you in that mirror is an ugly reflection of reality. You say that rhetoric on the right can lead perhaps not to violence on political figures or public figures, but to the average gay couple or the minority. And I would just ask you, please give me that example.
I mean, there's probably plenty of examples. I don't have them right now, but it happens on a day-to-day basis, just bigotry against minorities and gay people. But I'm not saying it's caused by right rhetoric, because I can't prove that. And to say that these shooters and these people who commit violent acts are directly related to rhetoric from the left is just can't be. You can't know that for sure. I mean, we could speculate for the reasons, but you can't know that.
Okay, we're going to get to your final point there. We're going to walk through what you had to say step by step. I think this is an important conversation. You know, bigotry is always going to exist. Tribalism is at the base level of human nature. Tribalism lines can be drawn on any particular arbitrary basis, from religion to race to gender to sexuality. It is the base level instinct of humanity, and it's one we hope civilization pushes us beyond. But the point there is that bigotry is and always will exist, because it exists within the heart of man, and it's our job spiritually to overcome that base level instinct. But bigotry in and of itself is a broad and generic claim for you to invoke. I need a specific example of where violence has been committed in the name of bigotry that you then can tie to specific language from high-powered or high-profile figures using that type of bigotry. Because I reject your premise on two grounds. I don't think you have specific examples of that type of everyday bigotry erupting into violence. And number two, I don't think you have any rhetoric that you can point to from any particular public figure or politician that is tied to that bigotry.
Right. But there is, for the left, we don't have words on bullets right now. You have words on bullets, and that's what you're bringing up. And I understand that. So you're right. There is nothing I could point to directly, but a lot of people see it day to day. And, you know, it's different than, you know, going to an ICE center.
They see what day to day? They see what day to day?
Well, we see violence happen all the time. I mean, for specific reasons, for non-specific reasons. But yes, you're right. When we're talking about political violence.
That's always Dan, that's always a generic thing invoked, and I'm not suggesting violence or bigotry don't exist, and there are times when violence and bigotry are connected. But you're not giving me any specific examples. You're suggesting it's the day-to-day existence of a minority. But the important point here is any of that tied to a larger political climate created by politicians? And the truth is, the best example as you're sitting here talking that I can think of is a young woman murdered on a Charlotte light rail less than 2 weeks ago, completely swept overwhelmed in the news cycle by the assassination of Charlie Kirk, where the murderer said, "I got that white girl." I mean, show me the examples of that existing that you are talking about, and then I have to then see what rhetorical climate you're referencing led to that moment.
No, you're right. And the other point is that I was making in the call that we're talking about is that to say that this is all the left and it's all the left violence, that's not true. I mean, to say that this person represents what everyone else on the left represents isn't true. And this is more of what from other people I've been hearing about.
Okay. So I appreciate this. I want to say that, and whoever is in the militia out there, if you're in the comment section, if you're in YouTube and you're in Facebook, and you're mad at Dan, know that I am not. I want to hear this point of view. If you agree with Dan, I actually want to hear the better evidence that Dan hasn't yet been able to marshal. No offense, Dan. But I'm open to hearing that. But right now, Dan, that idea that we live in a racist world full of trans violence on a day-to-day basis, and it's the fault of the rhetoric of Donald Trump or someone on the right, is an unproven case. It is a feeling. It is a vibe. It is a meta argument, one that really exists in people's minds, but I don't see playing out in reality. In the converse, I now have multiple examples in a very short period of time of direct violence with the motives of the killer laid bare on their ammunition, echoing the exact same language from multiple Democrat politicians. And what I'm telling you is, don't run to your battle station. Don't be defensive. No one is suggesting it's the entire left. So if you feel some personal culpability for that and you're on the left, maybe you need to ask yourself why. Why do you feel personal culpability for that? Is it because you vote for Gavin Newsom? Because I will tell you, he is culpable, Dan. Jasmine Crockett is culpable. Representative John Larson is culpable. If you are saying things like Los Angeles Mayor Karen Bass, that ICE is raining down terror, and then someone writes, I want to rain down terror on ICE agents, I think you have some personal culpability. And I don't see a both sidesism to that argument. Many people have invoked, for example, President Donald Trump just on Sunday at Charlie Kirk's memorial saying, I hate my opponent. That's what the kid said at the Turning Point USA event to Megyn Kelly, suggesting not only that it's both sides, but that Donald Trump creates the division and the left, if anything, has just taken it to another level. What I would say in response is this. I tried to write out a little whiteboard on almost a scale of rhetoric. And this is what we are seeing when it comes to rhetoric. I've gone through a lot of this, but these are specific citations from Democrat politicians calling their opponents Nazis, calling ICE Gestapo, calling ICE secret police, suggesting the ICE actions of ICE are terror, calling their opponents fascists. And then, I do believe, way down the scale, below a different line, you have someone, in this case President Donald Trump, saying, I hate my opponent. I don't want best for my opponent. And I ask you with all common sense and honesty, are those the same? Do you think that menu of items, of rhetorical flourishes, of ad hominem attacks, of exposition of emotion is the same level of division? Do you think that is the same low bar that our politicians are meeting? And I also ask you, do you not see the direct connection? I've written on the board next to terror and fascist, literally those were words inscribed on bullets in Dallas and in Utah. And even if you believe all of this is rhetorically the same, where are your examples of someone committing violence in the name of, I hate my opponent, I don't want best for my opponent? This isn't a both sides issue. This isn't of equal measure. This isn't, yeah, but Donald Trump. This is a moment where we have to be honest. We can't be defensive. And the left has to look in the mirror. Otherwise, sadly, what just happened in Utah and what just happened in Dallas isn't the end of the story. It is the beginning of the story if we don't get that long look in a mirror from the left. Let's run all this by the host of The Benny Show, Benny Johnson, coming up next on Will Cain Country. Special announcement right here today on Will Cain Country, which we hope you will follow, like, and subscribe on the Will Cain Country YouTube, at Spotify or Apple. Coming up from Benny Johnson of The Benny Show. 2 Days Dan did his best today, an effort which I appreciate, to have a conversation that many are having, whether or not it be on CNN or at Turning Point USA events, having out there in America about whether or not this is a both sides issue when it comes to political rhetoric. Earlier today, Dan said, I can't do it as well as comedian Tim Miller. And Tim Miller laid out his argument on Piers Morgan.
Every liberal is not violent. I know lots of liberals. I talk to a lot of liberals don't own weapons, don't want to have weapons, preach peace. There were obviously a lot of Christians and MAGAs and conservatives that preached peace yesterday, including Charlie's wife. Tyler Robinson, what he did was horrible, and he's responsible for his actions. People are responsible for their words if they're lying, and they should be called out for it. Carrie just said they did this. She used the word they. I didn't do any of that. I didn't laugh at Charlie. I didn't kill Charlie. I don't take any glee in his pain. And I think that the way that we've all decided to treat each other on these panels, like we're enemies and there's some civil war, when like the reality is a deranged 22-year-old that got radicalized did something really bad, and we should all condemn it and say we don't want that to become a country where people do political assassinations.
2 days. I said comedian Tim Miller because I thought the clip was comedian Tim Dillon. I didn't know you were doing Pearl Necklace Boy. I didn't know who that was. I would have never played that lady boy.
I said Tim Miller.
I would have never played that. That is the most punchable face in media. That guy always looks like he just ate something sour, and he's smarter than you. Tim Miller. I don't know who Tim Miller is. I just know he's the dude that inexplicably wears. He's the dude that inexplicably wears a pearl necklace.
Because he loves Harry Styles.
God, I can't believe you had me. I can't believe you had me play.
I said his name.
Pearl necklace.
You heard it
boy.
wrong.
What dude wears a pearl necklace? What goes into that decision? I try not to judge superficially, but that one right there might be a bright line. Why are you wearing a pearl
Harry Styles.
necklace?
That's why.
I don't get it. But I do take the point that he makes that he is not personally responsible for the actions of Tyler Robinson or the would-be murderer in Dallas, Texas, and you feel like you are not responsible. Your friends are not responsible. Your wife is not responsible. People on the left in general are not responsible. My response to that would be, but if you have used the language that has directly motivated these killers, maybe you deserve that long look in the mirror. And my suspicion is if we go back through the archives of Pearl Necklace Boy, we're going to see some invocations of authoritarianism and fascism. Let's talk about this with the host of The Benny Show, Benny Johnson, here on Will Cain Country. What's up, Benny?
What up, Will? Yo.
Good to see you, man.
Yeah, no pearl necklaces here, no puka shell necklaces. Tim Miller was the communication director for Jeb Bush when he was running for president in 2016. Do you know that? So you probably know him from that campaign. Just a reminder of what the Bush family was trying to put inside of the White House. Everybody who worked for the Bushes now works for MSNBC. So just a reminder of exactly what that was. I think that actually becoming politically awake is realizing that George W. Bush and Michelle Obama are like part of the same party, and they like share the same staff. And those people think the same way. And also Tim Miller is also in the Guinness Book of World Records, I think, fighting Harry Sisson for the lowest testosterone level ever known to mankind.
I think that's probably scientifically provable. He also writes for The Bulwark, which is one of these Project Lincoln type publications that does nothing more than echo the left's talking points under the flag of coming from the right. And largely, I'm uninterested in the musings of Tim Miller. But do you think the right, to my producer Dan's point, is generalizing the rhetoric, generalizing the accusations after the murder of Charlie, and quite honestly, a continuation of that with what we saw yesterday in Dallas, to indict too big of a scope, too broad of a swath of the left?
No. And I don't understand how anyone could possibly make that rationale. I mean, this is, again, the same party that tried to criminalize MAGA because a couple of grannies waved 25-cent Walmart flags as they looked at the Capitol on January 6th. I mean, like the way that they went ruthlessly after people that weren't even there on January 6th, the way that they threw that net and cast that net. I mean, they went after Donald Trump for incitement when Trump said march peacefully. And it's just like, and now they're going to sit there and say, well, the times when we actually incited violence. Here's a good example. And I actually looked this up. So President Trump eats a bullet, Will. He ate a bullet in Butler. And it was less than a week before an MSNBC pundit was saying it's time for us to put a target on Donald Trump. Back, live, on air. And what you'll constantly find between, as a difference between the left and the right, is that we don't allow that kind of rhetoric. Not only that, we don't allow violence at all. And we kick that out of our party. We disavow it. Whereas the left not only covers it up, in the case of Jimmy Kimmel, but then says to other left-wingers that want to target Trump supporters, we'll cover for you. In fact, we'll blame MAGA for your crimes. So you can get a twofer here. This is why it is so despicable and morally unforgivable what Jimmy Kimmel did. And I have something else for you, Will. You know, I come prepared in these kind of situations. Here is something I call the handy dandy printer paper that I have created a chart. What is this chart from? It is from the DOJ's own data in the year 2023. This is the Biden administration data, and this is crime committed by registered Democrats versus crime committed by registered Republicans. As you can see here in the data, Will, there's quite a difference in the parties. This difference is also demonstrated in a voluminous number of polls that show that the Democrat Party, especially younger left-wingers, see political violence as a means to an end and a political tool. This is something that was obviously espoused from the House floor when 58 Democrats refused to disavow violence this past week. And in the aftermath of the murder of Charlie Kirk, the political assassination of Charlie Kirk, the ICE shooting yesterday, and the transgender slaughter of Catholic school children praying, the response to the left, Will, has not been quiet reflection and prayerful consideration of how they could do better, but instead victim blaming, like Tim Miller just did, and then also more terrorism. They planted bombs on a Fox News local affiliate van. They've shot up an ABC news station. Left-wingers have desecrated Charlie Kirk memorials. There's like a dozen assault charges for left-wingers who have attacked Charlie Kirk mourners. Tens of thousands of leftists have celebrated Charlie Kirk's murder online. And of course, you had Predator George Zinn, who miraculously was standing there when Charlie Kirk was shot, put his arms in the air, and said, it was me, allowing for the actual shooter to get away. And I still have no proper explanation for why he did that. He's in custody right now. They found a bunch of Predator material on his phone. That's why I call him that. You can go look it up. And that has been the response from the left. And so, yes, we have a major problem with left-wing terrorism in this nation. And yes, it is organized and centrally funded. And yes, as we just heard on my program a second ago, of Trish McLaughlin from DHS, that this was a copycat of Charlie Kirk. And so this is the sum of all fears, Will, is that there's going to be copycats. The guy that shot up the ICE agency was searching for the Charlie Kirk shot, was searching for how the gunman did it. These were some of the searches leading up to his attack on the ICE facility, doing the same thing, carving left-wing iconography on his bullets and so on. It's a huge problem. And the final thing I'll say here is you can't unite with people. We want unity. Yeah, me too. Okay? Yes, I want the old-fashioned America, where we just kind of politely disagree. But you can't unify with people who want you dead. You can't live with people who want you dead. It's not going to end well. And you can't unify over a lie. And the biggest lie right now on the left is both sidesism. The biggest lie on the left is, oh, there's also right-wing violence. Oh, yeah, where? You were just making this point, and you make a great point. Okay, show me. And they can't. And so they won't own the violence on their own side. Well, there can be no unity over a lie. You can't unify with evil. You can't embrace evil. You must destroy it.
So I want to dig into the word that you used and Tim Miller used, and that is the word they. That is the word that is causing what is left of the sane elements of the left to recoil. I don't think that's a problem for you, Benny. I don't think that's a problem for me. I think that's a problem within their tent. They need to begin to define their they, because there is a real problem, and you've given wonderful argument to that problem. You reference the polling, Benny. You can take a look at this from YouGov that shows most Americans say it's unacceptable to be happy about public figures' deaths, but younger and more liberal Americans are more likely to call it acceptable. On political ideology, very liberal people, 24% suggest it's always or usually acceptable to be happy about a public figure's death. Another 20% aren't sure, making that 44% can't condemn the idea that you're happy or celebrate the death of a public figure. If you look at the conservative or the very conservative side of that, it is 7%, less than 7%. It's about 3% that say it's acceptable, and another 7% say they're not sure. The problem is exactly as you've stated, Benny, that we have the language and the rhetoric of the Democrat politicians. That's documentable, and it is right there written on the bullets of several assassins. We have, unfortunately, even I think almost more unfortunately, the celebration videos of what turns out to be our teachers and our neighbors, and they are part of the they. And we also have these people right here registering in these polls who have seemed to embrace this moment in America and this concept of violence. And for my producer, Two-A-Days Dan and his friends, or Tim Miller for that fact, if you don't consider yourself part of these groups, you have to police your side because you are losing it to your side. The they is your friend, Tim. The they seems to be, and we'll come back to him in a moment, it seems to be some of your friends, two-a-days. That's to you, Benny.
I'm telling you, dude. The fact that they can't, the fact that they don't police their own side, the fact that they don't, like, on the left, go through and disavow this stuff, and that they don't say, like, when Jimmy Kimmel goes on and says, hey, it was a MAGA shooter that killed Charlie. And by the way, Charlie Kirk was the generational face of MAGA. And therefore, Charlie Kirk deserved it, is what Jimmy Kimmel is implying, right, when he says something like that. That's going to lead, and then we said it the moment, this is why I went so hard at Jimmy Kimmel over the last couple days, is that that's going to lead to copycats. Because what Jimmy Kimmel is saying is, with the full FCC licensure that I get, taxpayer-funded royalties and privileges that I get, I'm going to use this massive platform and government resources and infrastructure in order to broadcast this lie into your homes. And what that lie does is signal to other left-wingers that you can just go out and you can hunt Trump supporters and I'll cover for you. And then, lo and behold, it is precisely what we are seeing happening over the last 24 hours. You are seeing blue and non-leftists go on social media, Will, and say, yo, this looks like a conspiracy theory. I'm sure that ICE just got a ballpoint pen and wrote anti-ICE messaging on the bullet casings. I'm sure they changed his Facebook profile photo. You know, he's a Facebook profile photo of a communist, right? And a hammer and sickle is his Facebook profile photo. Kash Patel just released the information that he was, again, trying to copycat. And how do you get that? How do you get those kind of copycats? You don't have any mechanism on the left, or you have no willingness on the left to actually call out evil on their own side. Meanwhile, on the right, this is a constant vigilance. I don't know a single person, I use this example, I don't know a single person who, you know, let's talk about somebody who is despised by the right, that has a big name ID, you know, maybe as big as Charlie Kirk's, and that would be Joe Biden. Joe Biden got terminal cancer diagnosis, stage 5, metastasized to his bone. That's a death sentence, according to all available, physicians' assessments of cancer. I mean, it's a very bad cancer diagnosis. No one celebrated, Will. Nobody cheered that on. No one, as far as I know, and every other influencer and every other person was like, yo, I really hope that, like, Joe Biden, you know, I hope that he, like, lives out his days for whatever days that God has numbered for him. You know, we hope the best for him. We're going to say a prayer for him. That's what we did. That's how we treated Joe Biden. Something bad happening to Joe Biden. I got another, like, little anecdote, and it's the last one I'll leave with you. So I was backstage at Charlie's memorial. I was chatting it up with some Secret Service agents, some homies that I know in Secret Service, they're good dudes, and some guys from the FBI. And they had been there day and night for the last week at the arena, and they've been doing all the security protocols. They did, what they told me is they had higher security protocols than the Super Bowl for that event. There's more people at that event than go to the Super Bowl, actually. There's close to 300,000 people that were physically there in the location, according to geo-tracking. Well, here's what they told me, Will. They said that in all of their spec ops for the Charlie Kirk Memorial, that not once did the proposition of right-wing violence come up in their assessment. Their major security assessments was that someone of the left would sneak in and commit a terrorist act. Now you have 300,000 mourners who just lost a generational hero and a future president that are there on site, and there's not a single instance of jaywalking. There's nobody even spat gum on the sidewalk. There's no burning cop cars. There's no burning buildings. There's no attacks. There's no fights. There's no fist thrown. You know, that's like that's the difference between the Charlie Kirk revival and the George Floyd riots. You can see it as clear as day.
No, it's stark. I remember reading the story about Charlie and Ben Shapiro having dinner together, talking about, because their security details were around them, whether or not all of it was necessary and that it felt like overkill, despite the fact that I'm sure they were both very well aware of specific threats coming their way. The world has changed. You know, not to ever suggest I'm on the same level or face the same kind of threats. My world's changed. I'm sure yours has, and Benny, and not by my own choosing. There's more security around me. And I find myself having the same conversations that apparently were had between Charlie and Ben. Is this really necessary? But as incidences add up, I mean, the answer comes back as maybe. maybe it is necessary. I don't know. Tim Pool said this recently. He said, there's a reason you feel that way, Will. There's a reason that you could feel that way, Benny. Here's Tim Pool.
What made the difference that brought his show back? Well, this is a little bit of speculation, but there was a terror attack on an ABC affiliate in Sacramento by what is reported to be a Democrat who opened fire on the building. And it's been reported by the New York Post that Sinclair pulled their Charlie Kirk memorial because of terroristic threats against ABC affiliates. So I agree with you. It's open season on people who are standing up, speaking out, or supporting Trump. But the left is also attacking regular people to force their will. And I think it's because they recognized Donald Trump won the popular vote. Normal people have spoken, and they're not tolerating their strange policies that are destroying this country anymore.
You know what's interesting, Benny? I gave a talk last night at an event, and the subject came up of a new video that's been aired by with Charlie. And Charlie Kirk was talking about the concept of offense and that we need to go on offense. It's interesting. What does that mean, to go on offense? Conservatism, you and I have been around for quite some time. We've known each other, I think, over a decade. And conservatism, by its very nature, has been defensive. It's been defined by William F. Buckley at National Review to stand athwart history yelling, stop. But it has to go on offense. The question is, how do you go on offense in a way where you don't become the left, you don't stoop to their extra constitutional or low bars, and still continue to win over America? And I think Charlie was the great exemplar of that, of how you do that, of how you go on offense and win people over. But I think that's the great debate moving forward. Because, by the way, what I think you're seeing, Benny, this entire thing, all the litany that Tim Pool listed off and that you did as well, I actually think they are the actions of a dangerous animal wounded, backed into a corner. They're the actions of a side that is losing cultural relevance, losing the ability to speak to the American people, lost the rhetorical debate, and what they have left is this. But winning doesn't last forever. Every side thinks they're going to win forever. So the question is, how do you go on offense in a way that maintains winning?
Yeah, but winning does go in cycles, and cultural changes are generational. And so what I think we are seeing right now is the death spiral, metaphorically speaking, of what happened in the 1960s and the communist revolutions of the 1960s. And that people are wholesale rejecting those and are actually returning, quite frankly, to the politics and some of the social and economic policies of their grandparents, and recognizing that actually it was your grandparents, your great-grandparents that kind of had things figured out, and that this is like a better way of life. And Charlie was an evangelist for that. Charlie was an evangelist to me as an individual. He obviously Christ-centered my life and was there as a friend to me in too many circumstances to actually enumerate. But let me tell you about one in particular. It was after the 2020 election, and it was deeply depressing and demoralizing for people of the right and for Trump supporters. And obviously, there was bombshell after bombshell and bad event after bad event, and it just felt crushing at the time. And Charlie said, I was like back in the Phoenix headquarters of Turning Point USA, and Charlie looks me directly in the eye, and he could see I was kind of like feeling the weight of it, and he goes, "Nope, not our time to cry. We are going to go 50 times harder." And that is precisely what Charlie did. Charlie, just like you never saw that man down. He just went 50 times harder. In the context of the video that you are referencing, Will, is Charlie in Nebraska. Do you know the background of Charlie and that conversation about offense? Because Charlie's in Nebraska trying to create enough public support for the dark red supermajority Republican state of Nebraska to have the balls to go out and to get rid of their what's it called? Bicameral Democrats get one electoral vote from Nebraska. Charlie, just like on the off sort of research hand, realized that Nebraska was giving up an electoral vote to Democrats, and that there's some math that electoral vote could have handed Kamala Harris the presidency. And so Charlie just went full in and went hard in Nebraska and did huge events in Omaha, worked with the governor. And I think that maybe perhaps down the line, they may be changing that. Now you're watching mid-year mid-cycle redistricting happening all across the country. I think in part because of Charlie going on offense. Those who knew Charlie the best knew that he loved cultural victories. He loved when we were able to actually exercise and wield power, because we live in a center-right country, Will. We live in a country where 90% of the counties went Trump. Trump wins the popular vote in this country. Trump won 7 out of 7 swing states. But where is our representation in the media? Where is our representation in entertainment? Where is our representation in culture? Is culture center-right? Is Hollywood center-right? Is media center-right? Of course not. So there's a misalignment there. And Charlie wanted us to realign the country based on what our nation actually represents. That's why he would have loved this Jimmy Kimmel battle. The reason why they're so scared of it was because we reached up into the diseased temple of modern day Hollywood. And we were able to actually affect one of their high priests in that temple. And we were able to have some accountability for like the first time in my lifetime. And that's because of something very critical, Will. The left has lost. They have lost their cultural authority. They have lost their institutional authority and power. And they have lost their regulatory power. And those are the three things. All of them prop each other up. Andrew Breitbart said that politics is downstream of culture. All of those three things prop up their culture. And without them, they cannot enforce any of their hedonistic policies, pagan policies on the rest of us. And so this is an opportunity to use that, to wield that power. President Trump, of course, the master of it. And Charlie smiling down from heaven when it comes to these kind of cultural battles. If you will, just allow me to present to you, Will, something special. I have a big announcement for your show. In the vein and in honor of Charlie Kirk, we are going to fight cultural battles, and we are going to win them in an arena that Charlie loved so very much, college football. I know this is a sports show as well, and I know that you've had a long and wonderful history on ESPN, and I know that you're a big sports guy, so you're going to love this. And we're breaking news here. Turning Point USA, at the game of the week, Penn State versus the Oregon Ducks. This is going to be a massive game. This is a game that Charlie Kirk was going to attend. Charlie Kirk loves Oregon, but he also has a bunch of fans at Penn State and has done huge events there. We're going to be handing out, Turning Point USA is going to be handing out 5,000 Charlie Kirk Freedom shirts at that game. It's going to be a whiteout game at State College, so it's going to look great in the stands. And we want the entire stand. There's 100,000 people in that bowl, so, you know, it's going to be a fraction of them. But we want the student section to be popping with Charlie Kirk Freedom shirts for the whiteout at Penn State this weekend. This happens on Saturday. There's going to be a Turning Point table, and we're going to hope to do Charlie proud by fighting those cultural battles.
I hope you have that table well manned, Benny, because you're going to have a big line for those 5,000 shirts. You may be handing them out one at a time. You may have a T-shirt gun. You may need a T-shirt gun, because my suspicion is you're going to have a big line for those T-shirts. My only regret is that it wasn't a whiteout game, so that your white Freedom shirts don't blend into the rest of the white-shirted crowd. I want you to stand out like a beacon in that stadium, so much so that the announcers have to address why there are 5,000 people in a white T-shirt. But you might be able to accomplish that even though everybody is wearing white. That's an awesome thing. Benny, you knew Charlie really well. Any idea, and I've been curious about this, why an Oregon Ducks fan? Why was he so big on Oregon?
I think the lore is that he went there for a semester and that he attended.
He went there is that where he went for one semester?
Yeah.
I thought he went somewhere in
Utah.
Okay. Oregon for one semester. There's
no
picture.
Yeah, he had a fanatical love
Charlie.
of Oregon. Yeah. He had a
and I don't
fanatical love
begrudge
of
Charlie
Oregon.
of that, you know.
Yeah, and I think that Oregon, to their great credit, is going to be doing a memorial Charlie Kirk seat that will sit empty in their stadium for like forever, in honor of Charlie and his love of the football team and program there.
Oh, I really love the football coach, Dan Lanning, who has, I think, said some really kind words about Charlie in the wake of his assassination, which is the type of cultural bravery you're talking about. We want to see more and more cultural bravery from the people who share our values. We want, as Wade Stotts told us a little bit earlier this week, we want pink to feel like she is actually in the minority, which she is, and to feel afraid to post the type of things that she's posting. And we want Chris Pratt, brave, to stand out there strongly and show who he is and the values that he shares. And that's the cultural battle I look forward to seeing you fight starting this weekend at State College for Oregon, Penn State. And I appreciate you making that announcement here with us today, Benny. I got one of those shirts, by the way, on order on the way. And so we're looking 5,000 students.
That's
Freedom
right.
Shirts.
That's right. It's college
Always
game
appreciate
day.
you.
Yep. College game day. It's going to be rowdy. It's going to be amazing. And there's going to be a lot of love for Charlie, I know, in that beautiful state.
Awesome. The host of The Benny Show, Benny Johnson. Man, thank you for your time and thank you for your efforts.
Thank you, Will.
All right, there he goes, Benny Johnson. For any Benny Johnson fans who stuck around, we appreciate you doing so. We know that you were watching The Benny Show. We thank you for being here with us today. We hope you'll be with us every day. Just click right there on YouTube to Will Cain Country, and you can be a part of the debate, the Willisha, which we're going to get back to in just a moment with an episode of Final Takes, including whether or not New York Mets announcer Gary Cohen was wrong to indict a Cubs player for skipping a game to attend the memorial for Charlie Kirk. Coming up on Will Cain Country. Poor two-a-days. Poor Dan. That's what is said by Suzanne in the Willisha on YouTube. It is Will Cain Country on the Will Cain Country YouTube channel and also on Spotify or on Apple. We're going to get to an episode of Final Takes, including the weirdos on my show want to talk about what food is better at home than from a restaurant, and whether or not Mets announcer Gary Cohen was wrong to go after a Cubs player for skipping a game for the Charlie Kirk Memorial. But because we want this show to continue to evolve into one that includes you, the Willisha, we go to the comments section where Undercover Brother says, when you have no evidence, you continue to live in a bubble, and the bubble is toxic. Let's bring in two-a-days, Dan, Tinfoil, Pat, Young, Connor can jump into the conversation. Mike Mitchell, two-a-days, says, Dan is speaking truth.
Thanks, Mike.
Will, you never want to say the right is wrong. Okay, Mike, first of all, I want to reiterate that Dan is my friend. And not only is Dan welcomed into the conversation when he disagrees with me, but I think Tinfoil Pat can echo this. He is encouraged, meaning I say to him, what did I say, Tinfoil? I want you to say it on air, and if you wussy out and say it softer or different on air than you do in our call, then I will be pissed. So I want what you believe. And then I will crush what you believe. Your examples of right-wing violence are weak, Dan, and you know that. And
sure.
You just
I tried to help him
I said,
out.
you can't avoid this. You tried to help him out, what, coming up with a list? Or you tried to help him out on not sending that to me?
Just come up with a list, you know.
I had a list.
Had a list.
I just didn't want to get there because, it incites more things that we don't want to talk about.
But it's part of the conversation. It's not just about inciting somebody to be angry at you or for me to be angry. It's actually illustrative. On your list, for example, you had the Pulse nightclub shooting. That is an example of a misinformation bubble that has been repeated ad nauseum to the point that it's not even questioned. The Pulse nightclub shooting was done by a Muslim terrorist, a guy motivated by his Islamic fundamentalism. Yes, he targeted gays. That doesn't make him a conservative or a Republican or it coming from the right. And you said to me, yeah, but who does it target? You said it targeted gays. And I said to you, it's not about the target. It's about the motivations of the killer. As to Mike Mitchell's point, Will, you never want to say the right is wrong. I'll take that. I'll think about it, Mike. I do try to be self-critical, and sometimes clearly the right is wrong. Benny Johnson pointed out there are debates on the right. For example, I had a big debate the day, I believe it was the day before Charlie's murder, with Rand Paul about targeting gunboat ships, or rather drug-running ships, in the Caribbean and whether or not that was extra-constitutional. We will have our debates on the right. I don't know that amounts to me, open with my bias, open with my opinions, open with my values, as being incapable of ever saying the right is wrong. Bill Guerra says, I think Dan was missing that you are speaking of a specific category of violence. and he is speaking of violence broadly in general. What do you say to that, Two-A-Days?
I was speaking about political violence. I mean, what do you consider it? You consider someone having violence upon them because of who they are or what they say. I mean, if you want to call that political violence, then it is. So either way, you know, just because you're not a politician or on TV doesn't make it any different.
Yes, it does when the motivations of the killer specifically ascribe to a political ideology, when he lays out his motivations, when he says why he is doing it.
The Buffalo shooting.
Like the ICE attack 2 months ago in Alvarado. Like the attempted assassinations of Donald Trump. I will actually tell you that Butler seems to be a better example than Ryan Ruth, who is a legitimate crazy man, okay? But I do think Ryan Ruth, he's a bit different. He's a crazy man saturated in crazy rhetoric about Donald Trump. Weirdly, we don't know much about Butler. But Tyler Robinson and what we saw in Dallas are not crazy people emboldened by rhetoric, but rhetoric creating crazy people.
How are they not crazy?
To do actions.
They picked up a gun and shot someone.
You say that because who...
But
I know
that's crazy.
That's argument.
We
from
don't
reverse.
do that. You're not going to do that.
That's reverse engineering. But Dan,
so.
then your argument then is that every murderer is not guilty by definition of insanity because he committed an insane act in murder. But we know the difference between a crazy person and someone who is walking around in our society living a somewhat normal life who decides that this is a rational act. We know the difference. You don't just get to claim insanity because you did something insane.
I'm not claiming insanity. I'm claiming that it's not a normal thing to do for a normal person to do. So to call these people just normal people to commit murder is not the same thing.
But my argument, Dan, and this is the crux of it, is it's becoming more normal. You see? That's
Which it
the
shouldn't
point.
be, and I agree. You're right.
It's becoming more normal, and that's why we're screaming from the rooftops.
Yes, you're right.
That's why we're having this debate.
You're right.
And that can't be enough. We have to go after these organizations. We have to go after any funding, any logistics, any support. We have to go after it because I do think Benny Johnson is right. With someone who has gone down this path, there is no compromise.
I find it abhorrent, too.
Katsy says, Dan always has a chip, lame attitude. I don't think so.
I don't. I'm like the most laid-back guy ever.
I know.
We really need to take care of it.
I think you need a bigger chip.
It's getting too much.
In the comment section? They're really going after him in the militia?
Yeah.
Mark says, Two-A-Days Dan got to get it together. James Robbins says, Dan obviously don't know a damn thing. He supports his whole argument on fake news and innuendo. But Sarah Wood says, we do love you, Dan.
No, I know. I appreciate this conversation, too. I think it's good to have these conversations because I find what people said about Charlie Kirk afterwards, the people I know going after Charlie Kirk after he died, I find that horrible. I agree with that. I think it's terrible. What Pink said, all that. I agree. I don't think that should be accepted.
Yeah. And by the way, I'm not even sure, for the record, I hope I don't hurt his relationships with the Brooklyn Brunch crew or his domestic life. I'm not even sure that Dan is on the left, okay? I don't know for sure, but I think for the record, even if he is, Dan is the reachable left. This is the one that we should be talking to.
There you go.
And we are. And so let's do that now. Dan, give us our intro for Final Takes.
Final take. I didn't record anything else.
Well, we're going to have to do it live every day until you record a good intro for Final Take.
We'll do some music.
All right, today, Mets announcer Gary Owen not happy with Cubs player Matt Shaw, who left his team to attend the memorial service of Charlie Kirk after being invited by Erica Kirk. Cohen and Todd Zeal talked through it further, with Zeal adding that it was unusual in baseball, especially back in his playing days. What Cohen said specifically, I don't want to talk about any politics of it, but the thought of leaving your team in the middle of a race for any reason other than a family emergency really strikes me as weird. Now, I told you guys what I think Cohen is guilty of here. I don't know anything about his politics. I don't know which way he leans. But I just think he's simply guilty of not reading the room. That line that he suggests is a line that could have been uttered by as Todd Zeal kind of said, any athlete at any moment at any given point in history, like, you don't leave your team. We have stories of athletes not leaving their team for the birth of their children, especially if you're in the middle of a playoff race. And Cohen is doing that tried and true talking point. It's not just a talking point. He's a former player. Is Cohen a former player? Zeal is most definitely a former player, where that's the attitude in the locker room. But what I think Cohen is guilty of is not reading the room. He's not reading the room in this moment. This isn't a normal playoff race. This isn't a normal moment in American history. Last night I was giving a talk. I was with Dr. Kevin Roberts of Heritage. He said Charlie Kirk's assassination was a, top 3 or 4 most consequential assassination in American history. And it got me thinking, yeah, I mean, it probably is, right? In the impact that it has had on the American people, the impact it has on our future, you're really looking at JFK, MLK. Like, what other political assassinations in our history do you think will have as big of an impact as that playing out live on our TVs, the murder of Charlie Kirk?
Like what Joey Jones said.
What did he say? What did Joey say?
He said that 9/11 was third-page news on that day because of Charlie Kirk, which is wild.
And a generation that didn't live through 9/11, right? And, yeah, you're talking about a thing that has a massive impact on a generation for decades to come. So, in the end, I think not reading the room, that's the sin of Gary Cohen, play-by-play for the New York Mets. Second and final takes. I'm going to turn it over to these guys because this is outside of our debate over both sidesism in rhetoric. The big debate they had. What food is better at home than in a restaurant? And there was hot takes flying all around. Yeah, it's a tinfoil pack. Connor, Jake,
Jack.
You 2 days.
Jack.
And I'll start it off, right, in saying things have changed. Because here's the food that would have used to be on that list. Not as good at home. Pizza. But culinary capabilities have changed so much, I would say, in the last 15 years, with people buying pizza ovens and getting into their little whatever they do. People are taking a lot of pride in their homemade pizzas. And I think what's happening is, we went through this period when I grew up when, like, I didn't come from a home with a lot of good home-cooked meals, to be honest. No offense, Mom. But going out to eat was always a step up, really, kind of, from the Schwanzman's delivery that we lived on. So maybe you grew up with someone who was much better cooking at home, but I think everybody's cooking at home a little more. And they're getting access to better ingredients and better kitchen accessories to do better at home. You disagree, Tinfoil?
Oh, no, I was agreeing with you. My mom was a terrible cook. She,
wow, you guys are
like,
savage.
going out was, I love my mom, she was so bad. I mean, she'd burn everything. Chicken was dry. Good luck getting anything like a pork chop. Like, that would, like, eating leather. Terrible.
So where we are today, then, I'm with Connor. I think it was Connor, by the way, like, that said this. I've gotten to the point that tacos are just as good at home as they are at a restaurant. And I eat a lot of Mexican food. I love Mexican food.
It depends on how much effort you put into them.
So who prepares them at your house?
My tacos?
Well,
yeah.
We do build your own. So, like, my wife makes the ground beef.
Okay.
And then we all have different tortilla desires, right? Like, some people still love the flour, and all I can read about is the lard in the flour, even though I love the way it tastes.
Corn's where
and
it's
then
at.
So you got some corn, you got some siete. Honestly, yes, I know. We do the almond flour tortilla sometimes. But you build your own. So you make it how you like it.
Wow.
You want some cheese, you want some avocado. That code's left 100%.
Yeah.
That code's left for me. So you make it how you want, Patrick. I like it like that. The only thing she does sometimes is she'll make some that she puts the cheese in it and then she puts it back in the oven, so it becomes the crispy taco, almost like an empanada. Really good.
No, it's pretty good. I mean, I just don't think that you can get the consistency of the ground beef the same as when you go to a Mexican restaurant.
What do you go with?
I haven't seen it yet. Like the way white people do tacos, it's like you just throw ground beef in there, you throw a little Mexican seasoning on there, and it's still just kind of mid, you know. But there's a way to cook it at home.
Like you live in
Florida. We just don't do it.
You got to stew the meat and then shred it. Like there's two completely different kinds of tacos. If you're making ground beef versus actually like, you know, you stew it in there, then you pull it apart.
Sounds
with
like
the
he knows
fork.
what he's doing. I think.
I make proper like birria tacos. They take like 2 days to make. 2 days, Dan.
Wow.
All right.
Wow.
So
I'm coming.
So it's a step.
I'll bring in pictures next time.
Doesn't do it justice. I need smells.
The smells are great. You can smell it upstairs.
So then what is it? What is the answer? Let's go around the horn, all three of you. What is the food that is better at home than it is at the restaurant? We'll start with you, two-a-days.
Grilled cheese. I can make grilled cheese better at home than anywhere else. It's fact.
That's good.
I'm with you, Will. I think pizza's best at home.
We come from the pizza capital of the country, Connor.
Oh yeah,
so Connecticut is the pizza capital of the country, and that's where we come from. Me and Connor. So we know pizza.
But yet he's saying it's better at home than going to one of your little one slicers up there in
Connecticut.
Connecticut.
Can do whatever he wants over there.
Well, I feel like with pizza, when it sits in the fridge for a while, the flavors kind of infuse together. You know,
that's wrong.
It's more uniform.
Fact check false.
No, it's true.
Actually, Italian food is a lot better the second day.
Yeah, like
I
pasta,
agree with
all
that. Yeah.
All right, Will, what's yours?
All right, tinfoil.
Mine is bacon and eggs. So like I make eggs really, really well at home. Going out and eating eggs terrible. Bacon. What are you talking about? Bacon?
All you do is heat up bacon and heat up eggs, and then no.
People, when you go to a restaurant, they cook the bacon wrong most of the time. And so like the fat doesn't cook the meat well. And so, but when you make it at home, put it in the oven, it like cooks it thoroughly, and then it's like really crispy and just perfect. Melts in your mouth.
They're also stingy with bacon at restaurants. So you'll pay like $6 and they'll give you 2 pieces.
Good point.
Well, I mean, I have 7 kids, so we're stingy at my house as well. So,
what, each kid gets 1 piece?
Half a piece of bacon.
Is that a big fight at the? Is that a big fight at the Hatton table? No, you've already had 2 pieces of bacon. You know, all the kids reaching and grabbing.
But I'm the oldest.
I bet it is. It was a fight in my house with just 4 kids, and you've got 12. So that's got to be a problem. That's interesting. The breakfast items, I enjoy making eggs. That's one of the few items I actually make. Here's the secret. I don't cook. Nothing. I eat leftovers for lunch. I never cook dinner.
That's coded right.
The only thing I ever do is breakfast. And now I'm back to being alpha male.
Yep.
The breakfast. And here's what I've been doing in my eggs, Patrick. I'm doing cottage cheese in my eggs. I did it in pursuit originally of more protein, getting more I'm trying to, get like 170 grams of protein every day, and cottage cheese is a huge source of protein. So you put that in your eggs while they're scrambling up, and it makes your eggs creamier. It's really good. And then my wife buys this Trader Joe's bacon.
Ooh,
it's incredible. I don't know what they call it. I think it's Black Forest or something. I don't know. But it's the best bacon that I've ever had. It's absolutely incredible. That being said, my favorite restaurant experience, Mexican food in a margarita is really high up there. I got an answer for you in just a second. My favorite restaurant experience is diner breakfast. I love it, man. I love sitting down and having them bringing you coffee. I love
early morning
eggs over medium with those shredded hash browns. I love it. The whole experience is a happy place for me. Here's something. I would say more often than not now, brisket is getting better at home. Now, there's a big variance.
Smokers
is the guy doing it
good at it? Do you have a smoker?
And I'm not I do have a green egg, but again, I don't do it much. My wife does it more than I do.
You get a Traeger.
Unless you go, like, if you go top-notch brisket, even in Dallas, top-notch, they're going to beat what you can do at home.
Yeah.
But if you're going mid-level barbecue at this point, you can do it better at home. And so that's what I would say we're doing better. And it's all about the technology. We're all getting access to all this technology, I'm telling you. And we're more into food than we used to be.
It's true.
It's not like when I grew up with the Schwans, man. All right. You keep your comments coming in. You take it easy on two-a-days. Dan is one of us, and we love having you in the show. We're going to be back here again. We appreciate Benny Johnson. We'll be back here again, same time, same place tomorrow. Make sure you subscribe, like, bookmark Will Cain Country on YouTube, Spotify, follow on Apple. We'll see you next time.